Yeah, there was something on the screen. Yeah, it's gone now.
No, the message about live streaming came, so I had to write got it.
Okay, so we are live on,
Yeah.
on YouTube. Good afternoon, everybody. We are waiting for some more people to join in. Welcome to the session. We are waiting for some more people to join in, and within a couple of minutes, we will start the session. So we have 65 people who are live, attending the session. So we are waiting for some more to join in. And yeah, sharp at 3:02, we will start the session.
Sumit, please do check chat on Zoom.
All right, so we have more people. Let me share that.
Okay, Sumit, I'm going to need a little help from you because I'm not able to see the YouTube responses. So when I ask people to write in for YouTube, they'll be writing into the YouTube chat or message box, right?
So I'll be taking those.
If you could just read it out, so that will help me consolidate the responses together. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right, I think we should start now.
Mm-hmm.
Very good afternoon, everybody. We welcome you all to this session on integrated pedagogy, art, sports, and storytelling and ICT by Ms. Ishita Verma.
Good evening, everyone.
Before I introduce the resource person for the day, let's have some ground rules. We are live on YouTube, and to participate in today's session, you can use the comment box to write in your responses or to ask questions. We'll be taking your questions in between, and in case if you have some more questions after the session, you can discuss and ask those questions at the end. Now it's time to introduce the resource person for the day, Ms. Ishita Verma. She has been in the field of education and training for the last 30 years, working with educational organizations across Delhi, Bhubaneswar, and Vadodara. Graduated with sociology honors and later acquired a diploma in computer application and a gold medal in PG diploma in education management. In the last 16 years, Ms. Verma was with the Saint Sant Kabir fraternity in Vadodara, and under her belt, a vast experience spread from the pre-primary to middle school, contributing significantly to setting up a new CBSE school, teaching English and social science, designing systems for teaching learning processes, writing content for promotional material, newsletter, script writing for plays and concerts, reflecting on assessments, school MIS, in-house and external teacher training. Now, I would request Ms. Ishita Verma to take the session forward. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Sumit, and thank you for such an illustrious introduction. Although I would love to tell you teachers, I'm really very down to earth. I just love being with children on terra firma and just exploring learning in a very fun way. So a very good evening to you all. And since this is the first session that I'm doing after Diwali, a very, very happy new year to all of you. And I hope the year ahead takes you through amazing platforms, experiences, and learning with each other and with children. So coming to today's topic, which is about integrated curriculum and integrated pedagogy, two very different terms. We'll be exploring that moving ahead. So, all right. So this is where, just a minute. I'll just share it again. Yeah. All right. So today we are going to be, let me just hide all these bars. Okay. So today we're going to be covering these 4 aspects. That's what has NEP told us about integrated curriculum and integrated pedagogy. And in light of that integration, we're going to revisit some definitions which we have been using in the past. We're definitely going to see what does it mean when we talk about integration of art, storytelling, sports, and technology. And of course, I will have some examples for you. So we may take a short break in the middle, during which I will allow you time to ask questions, and I'm going to request Sumit to help me with it since I'm not able to see what's going to come onto the YouTube chat window, right? So moving on, what does NEP 2020 tell us about integration? If you have seen the manual, you will find that they have talked about one major element in the NEP highlights, and it talks about curricular integration of essential subjects and skills in a seamless way. If you look at the manual, it's in chapter number 4, and you will find there are references in chapter 4 right from the beginning about integration of core subjects along with many other activity and co-curricular streams of education that now should not be taught as separate elements but fused together. Right, so there is arts integration, sports integration, technology integration, and storytelling integration. We also have a certain understanding of exactly what art integration and through what kind of art pedagogy is going to happen, what sports is going to happen. And already we know we are giving them a sort of a health card. There is an HPE manual which is available by CBSE, and you are all using that to give grades to children at critical areas in the report card, I think all the way from the middle school or maybe secondary school level, right? There is also a major emphasis by NEP telling us that apart from whatever we do with integration, there has to be a slightly higher focus on ensuring that mathematics, mathematical thinking and ability, and technology, which includes programming, has to be given a much greater impetus in the curriculum that we are going to follow with children now. So this is something that I have put together. So those are my initials because this wasn't a definition I picked out of the net. For quality and lifelong education, it is very important to focus on relevant curricula, engaging pedagogy, timely and quality feedback to promote deep learning supported by competency-based assessments. And I'm sure being teachers, you must be completely bombarded with a lot of new terminology which have become buzzwords in the education fraternity and education environment today. So everyone's talking about CBL or competency-based learning. People are talking about integrated curriculum. People are talking about blended learning, hybrid learning, lots of new terms. The most comfortable thing is they are not apart. We just need to see where the pieces of the puzzle fit in so that it just constructs a complete whole. And within that whole is where the magic is going to happen. So moving along, let's look at some definitions. So in the context of integrated pedagogy, please use the YouTube chat window, and Sumit, you can just read out whatever is coming on. I'd like you all to use just one word or maybe 2-word phrases to explain to me what you think curriculum is. What exactly is curriculum? Quick, teachers, just feed in your responses so that I keep hearing the words. Sumit will read them out to me and we'll put it all together with your involvement, my involvement, and we're going to do this learning together for the next 90 minutes. So fast with your fingers.
So I'm looking at the chat comment box to get the responses.
Teachers, you're on YouTube, so you can post in your responses.
Yeah, so Meenakshi ma'am says syllabus and learning.
Okay, syllabus and learning, all right. Some more teachers, quick.
Savita ma'am also says syllabus.
Okay.
And Manushi ma'am says planned education.
Client education, interesting, okay.
And Anita ma'am says it's an overall syllabus.
Okay.
And what to teach.
Yes.
And how to plan and things to do.
Okay, let's move on to the next one because that's, I think, where all the definition is now heading. What's pedagogy? If that's what you think curriculum is, what is pedagogy?
So we are having a little lag on YouTube, so it might.
No worries.
Yeah. Yes. So syllabus for particular class in the year.
So we use the word syllabus for curriculum also, and we have responses right now for syllabus also being pedagogy, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And all-round development of children.
Okay.
And Tanu ma'am says structure and framework for learning and teaching.
Right.
And Sarita ma'am says planned activities during the education.
Okay, those are, thank you teachers. You've been extremely kind and you are responding. So let's move on to the third term. What is multidisciplinary approach? What do you think is multidisciplinary approach? I'll make it easier for you because the fourth term is what is integrated approach. So now think about it very carefully. What do you think is multidisciplinary approach? So you can write MD or you can write I hyphen, and then what do you think it is? If I have separated the two terms, then obviously there has to be a difference.
Yeah, so there is one response that we have got for this. All
Yes.
activities are integrated with academic content.
Okay, so that is integrated,
Yes.
I'm assuming. Yeah, what would multidisciplinary be?
And involving many disciplines. This is what one of the teachers says.
Okay.
Okay, so Narendra sir says the method and practice of teaching, especially as an academic subject or theoretical concept.
Okay, so let's move on from here. Thank you very much, teachers, for your responses. Let's take a quick look at what we really need to understand about these four terms. There are finer nuances with multidisciplinary and integrated, which we'll come to later. So let's take a look at what exactly curriculum is. So derived from the Latin term, yes, you were very right, teachers. It is the what of what we are going to teach, the content, the subject matter. Whereas pedagogy, two of you or three of you very rightly says it's the process, it is the art, the science of teaching, the techniques. What are we going to use as a strategy, or how are we going to make learning come through to the children so that there is deep understanding? So when you look at curriculum and pedagogy together, curriculum is what is defined by our board, our exam boards, NCERT, education departments, which is a mandate about what is going to be taught in the class. And naturally, the outline of all that is given as your learning goals, your learning objectives, and learning outcomes. And that is what you use when you use Bloom's taxonomy in order to do your lesson planning, right? So what pedagogy is, the how part of it. You were very right when you said they are the plan or the activities, the processes, the teaching learning practices, including assessment of how the learning is going to happen with your children in the class or in the environment. Multidisciplinary approach is where you're looking at a theme, a common theme, but you are addressing that theme through the different subject components, each of them being handled differently. So if I'm looking at, say, for example, if I'm looking at something like the ceiling fan, we are all still in some parts of India, we are still using the ceiling fan, although winter is beginning to set in. So I may look at it from a physics point of view. So that's one discipline. I may look at it from a math point of view. That's another discipline. I may look at it from the social studies point of view about why do we need to have air circulation during certain times of the year, because we feel hot. What happens? Why do we need to, why do we feel hot? What is the position of the sun? Etc. etc. So each of these disciplines is looking at the fact of an electric, the ceiling fan, and we're looking at it through the various disciplines. Whereas in the integrated approach, the children just study about the use of a fan, what it is doing, and through the seamless interconnection of everything. All right, why do we put it up there? Why is it on the ceiling? How is it different from the pedestal fan or a table fan? And how does it circulate the air? Which is the direction of the movement of the blades of the fan? So everything is done through a process of discussion and learning. And children don't even realize when they have, flowed from the math content into the SS content or the science content, or even trying to make something. You remember when we were small, we used to cut paper and fold it with an oil pin and take it through a twig and make a fan and then blow into it just to see how it works, right? So it's all very seamless. And there in itself, you have art happening. We have done it. So today's topic, actually, when we're talking about integrating art, sports, technology may be something new, but definitely the performing and aesthetic arts and sports and storytelling, we've been doing it for a very long time. It's just that we didn't have these big buzzwords that we are using today to say that's the way it, that's the way we had learned it. So when we are looking at our traditional classrooms, we have to be sure about one thing. If we are going to do a unilinear, a teacher to student delivery in the class, it's a single task instruction, there is repetition, there is lecturing with no involvement for student, we are sure to have boredom in the class. There is one simple reason for this, because learners are not receptive learners. Learners are interactive learners. We just assume when we stand behind that desk that learners are receptive learners. They are actually interactive. They want to be engaged in the learning. They want to be engaged in even understanding the metacognitive part of it. How is it that I best learn? What is the process of the learning that I do best compared to what my friend does? What do I need to do? Do I need to physically construct something to learn? Or am I the kind who just reads theoretical books and research papers and I'm able to understand what the concept is for the particular topic? So when we look at all this, we have to look at the fact that today we are dealing with I generation kids, that is an internet generation kids. And these are some of the common traits that we see in I generation kids who are going to be ready with 21st century skills. So these are the 5 concepts. And because they are all pervasive, because they are so important, we have to factor all these 5 points in when we are doing integrated planning or lesson planning or planning a unit or an activity or even a project or a hands-on experience. We have to be aware of the fact that they are already early continuous buddies of technology. We have to be aware that they can multitask. They are able to handle all kinds of media. They want instant gratification. If they've done something, they want to know, is it working? Is my model very good? Is it all right? Am I going to get, am I being appreciated for what I'm doing? Instant gratification. So we need to work on projects which allow them to immerse themselves into the learning in such a way that these traits are kind of softened a bit, and yet the learning is taking advantage of integration, technology, and all the aspects that we're going to talk about today. So NEP definitely wants us to do away with rote learning, do away with boundaries of each of the individual subjects, and process everything through a merging concept. The fusion of subject lines so that children are able to, seamlessly explore, research, think, be curious, reflect upon it, extend their learning, and then we are looking at future citizens who are going to be reflective, thinking, and caring citizens. So the future citizens are I generation children with 21st century skills as well as human skills. Now, why I want to talk about the human skills apart from 21st century skills. So I'm going to narrate a little personal example of mine over here. Yesterday, I was talking to my son, and he is studying in the UK. He's doing his master's in finance and management. And they have already been told, even though the session started only in September, they have already been told that they have to apply to all these companies for their internship of jobs for the next fall. That is for next year, 2022's September. If they don't apply for those jobs now, they may not get it. And interestingly enough, my son told me that he is going to have an AI interview. So his interviewer is not a human face. He is going to go through an artificial intelligence interview in which he is expected to be suited with a tie and look very formal. And it is going to be a machine conducted interview. So the machine is going to be asking him questions. Why do you want to join XYZ company? And it is recording through the camera his facial expressions, his responses. It is going to calculate if there are pauses between his responses. What is the lag time in his answers? If the lag time is too much, the machine will automatically ask him, would you like me to repeat my question? So look where artificial intelligence is going. We are heading to a generation, or we are heading to a world where this generation is not going to have any of the jobs that you and I are doing today, or our husbands are doing, or our fathers are doing, or our brothers are doing. It's moving into a space where anything that can be worked on with facts, data, analyzed, researched, and compared will be done through machines. So, what is it that we need to train our children with in order to have an edge to be 21st century skill ready and human skill ready? Because it's the human element which is going to give us an upper edge over those machines. Because if we are feeding in so many concepts and combinations of logics and facts, the machines are going to be doing it faster than us. So, what is it? It is the subjective element. It is our thinking, our perception, our choices based on something which is linked to everything that NEP wants us to look at, which involves these factors. I will just come up with it. So integration is actually the act of bringing together smaller components in the curriculum into a single system so that it functions as a whole. So this is a very good time to watch a video. So I'm going to be turning on a video which will talk to you about what integration is in curriculum.
Hi, this is Paul from Pear Tree Education, and today I'm going to be speaking about integrated subjects, which is part one of a continuing series on 21st century education. Integrated subjects is an area of 21st century education that I'm particularly passionate about. It's also an area that's not very well understood publicly. There are various reasons for this. Firstly, there are different terms for integrated subjects, such as subject integration, interdisciplinary studies, and even theme-based learning or project-based learning. Also, there are various levels of integration, and this creates more complexity. Author Robert Fogarty presents 10 different levels of integration in his book, How to Integrate the Curricula. And we have to bear in mind that the average individual has this ingrained mentality that subjects should be taught separately. However, I disagree with this, and I hope you do too as you're watching this video. So what do I mean by integrated subjects? Well, firstly, this definitely includes theme-based learning. There's this level of knowledge that is required, but we don't think about this knowledge in terms of a specific subject area. It's just knowledge that's required to understand a theme or a topic. Then, at some point, there's a project that takes place, and this is an exploratory project, one which requires skills, and let us not forget, higher level thinking skills, all of those advocated by Bloom's taxonomy. Let's look at an example of a theme. A simple one would be sustainability, but actually, when you start trying to apply this in education, you realize that sustainability is a very, very broad theme. It encompasses everything. So we have to look at a narrower theme within that. What we could class as like a sub-theme. So we could go for something like resource sustainability. When you look at the sustainability of natural resources, you immediately start thinking about specific subjects. We've got geography, geology, chemistry, biology, math, and of course language arts. Whatever your theme is, and whatever your sub-theme is, it needs to be broad enough to utilize as many different subject areas as possible. Does that mean that we exclude certain themes? I have to say yes. Think about it this way, if the thing that you want children to study is only useful within that one subject area, then what is the purpose of studying that? One example would be calculus. The average individual is highly unlikely to ever use calculus in real life unless they're moving into occupations such as economy, astrophysics, or engineering. Unless the students are able to study the higher level application of calculus in some form or another to make it relevant. So for example, if you were studying a theme related to space travel, then you could incorporate calculus within that, but could also incorporate other subject areas as well, including history and politics, as well as things like physics, language arts again. Then, as part of this theme, you need that application, and the application comes from creating projects. So as we mentioned before, this project is an exploratory project where the students actually get to apply the knowledge and apply skills. But think about it this way, it's like a university paper. With project-based learning, you actually do more than that. You create things, you make things, and you definitely look at many different subject areas as part of your project. Another theme would be globalization. Again, this is a very, very broad theme. So let's look at a narrow example, like food globalization. Immediately I start thinking about geography and math, which would include economics, biology, chemistry, so the kind of earth sciences, sociology, history, politics, math again, but more connected with things like physics, so applied math, language arts. So what about something like art? Where does art come into this? For me, unless you're studying the history of art, I don't really see how art should be studied as a separate subject. Art is an expression of an idea, what you want to communicate. And so if you're studying art in isolation, you're detaching it from what you're trying to express. You can study the skills of art, but it's not just about trying to imitate someone else's art form. It's about finding your own way of expressing your ideas about that specific theme. Students should be taught and encouraged to use as many different art forms as possible. This includes performing arts, which again are expressions of ideas, expressions of feelings, emotions, and ways of communicating ideas to an audience. And I feel the same way about technology. Technology is not a separate subject area. Technology is a tool that's to be used to express or to be able to research within the theme and to be integrated with all those other different subject areas. It's not something to be studied in isolation, because then you detach technology from what it's used for. And what about knowledge? Well, knowledge is definitely necessary, but at the moment it seems to start from birth and then just continue forever, with no transition whatsoever into the high level thinking skills that we've been talking about. Because it seems like the moment young people learn one thing, we seem to find something else equally important for them to learn next. There's never time given towards actually applying the knowledge that they learned before. So therefore, there has to be a balance between knowledge and application, and there has to be a transition in this as well. So we're not flicking a switch. We're not saying to educators, okay, today's your first day at high school, so now it's time to start using higher level thinking skills. No, it's not like that at all. We have to be able to say that when you first start learning, that there is an element of application, but because of your age and because of your knowledge, that you're not able to apply that knowledge very well. So therefore, you need to put greater emphasis on learning facts at the younger age, and then gradually make a transition where you learn less facts, but you do more application. You never eliminate fact learning because it's something that we can do forever. But as this graph shows, you see that transition where at some point where the application takes over the fact-based learning as the priority of education. Now, there's no specific age for this to take place. It's based on the developmental ability of the child. Some children may not be capable or very good at applying knowledge, but that doesn't mean to say that you eliminate this because of their age. They should still be learning to apply knowledge.
Right. So that has given us a very, very nice insight into what integration really involves. So we'll move on. This is just to go back. We have all done it. Many of us who have done B.Ed or we have been recently doing some form of teacher training. We all know that in the and in terms of cognition, this is how children learn. There is critical thinking involved, research and discovery, experiential hands-on learning, puzzles and games, logic and reasoning, art experiences, peer learning, teamwork. We know all these facts which are together. Why I have put this slide is because we must have this in mind when we are thinking about integration and planning for integrating the subjects within the curriculum and using the correct pedagogy for the transaction of the curriculum. So I'm sure you all now know that curriculum is the what, the pedagogy is the how. And bringing it together in a seamless way is what integrated pedagogy is all about. So moving on, how children learn, the second slide, we all know that equality is what we are giving everyone. Everyone in our class, they are all within the same class, they all have access to the same textbook, they all have access to the same timetable, the same library, the same questions and answers, the same assessment. And yet we know within the class, given this equality, there are still some children who struggle because they are not able to meet the learning outcomes. And why that happens is because along with equality, we may have not taken into account what equity is. Equity is achieved when the students get the resources they need individually to succeed. So if you look at the diagram, in the first diagram, 3 of the children are at different levels in order to reach the branch that has the 3 apples. Notice how the first one is able to easily reach the apple. In the second diagram, the second child needs 1 step up, which means the child needs another opportunity for having the learning taking place or understanding the concept. The third child needs far more input. So this is where we have to keep in mind the concept of multiple intelligences and learner centricism. Each of the children does not behave the same way when we give them the same equal access to resources, opportunities, and experiences of learning. We have to cater to differentiated learner, and in the integrated curriculum and integrated pedagogy process, we have to factor in activities, experiences, and strategies that will cater to the individual needs of differentiated learners. So that's something we must keep in mind. So when we're talking about integration of subjects today, these are the 4 aspects that we will be covering, which is art integration, which has 3 aspects. That is art as curriculum. That means actually learning how to draw, paint, do various crafts, etc., etc. Art enhanced curriculum, in which the curriculum is further enhanced through art experiences, and of course, arts integrated curriculum, in which art becomes a very, very integral part of the strategy or the teaching learning practice that we are doing. And when I mean art here, I don't mean just picking up a pencil and drawing. We're talking about art in both its dimensions, that is aesthetic arts as well as performing arts, which would include drama, theater, music, singing, dance, just about any other form of performance. Storytelling is age old. If it hadn't been for stories which have been told to us even verbally, and we all know that the Vedas itself were just stories which went through for generations, and it was years later that somebody actually sat and wrote it down. So stories have been the oldest form of not only transacting information further through the years, but also recording certain things that have happened as events through the process of human evolution or human development. And also, they have also been the first form of teaching. It is through stories that even in the yesteryears, people actually taught concepts. And if you look at it today, anything can be made into a story. You want a volcanic eruption, we can make a story out of it. We can actually take the persona of the earth and what is happening inside earth. We can relate to what's happening with lava inside the earth, within the layers of the earth, to what depth, with emotions. What happens? Which are the emotions that come out when we are talking about the eruption of a volcano? What is it that comes under pressure and then has an outburst? Does that sound similar to what happens with humans who have an emotional stress situation? So there are so many ways in which we can integrate and relate. Sports, very important. The whole idea of health and wellness is important. NEP says that it is an integral part of the regular curriculum. Why do we not integrate sports as an experience or learning about fitness, exercise, diet, health, and physical well-being? We all know we are living in an age where health concerns seem to catch us at the youngest of age. We hear of people at 35 and 40 having heart attacks. We hear of people who have aches, joint aches and pains. We hear of people who have migraine headaches. We hear of people who have psychological issues. What is it that we need to understand and help our children from a very young age in school get aware about health and wellness so that it becomes a part of their everyday life and they cater to it while they are balancing their profession, family, and everything else in their life ahead? And finally, of course, technology. We've already talked about how this is the iGen kids. They're already into technology. Maybe not so in a way we would like them to, because most of the time I hear parents talking about he's just constantly on Netflix. He's just constantly on video games. He's only watching, so and so playing something, or he's on social media. Yes, that awareness is fantastic. But can we harness that ability of children to be able to be so quick with technology and have such a multitasking capability of handling it and channelize it into something which is more productive? So that art, those skills are with us. So we teachers actually have a greater charge of handling what children can do with technology. Of course, that would also mean we also embrace technology and make it a part of our teaching learning process. So NEP also says that apart from integration of art, storytelling, sports, and ICT, I'm sure you are all aware, these other 5 lower integrations are also equally important. So if I'm talking about food, or as the video said, we are talking about, say, sustainability and bringing it down to focused sustainability. What is the concept of sustainability of, say, resource sustainability in India? What are the issues in India? What about real world experience? What if children wake up one morning and there is absolutely no water in the entire colony? What is life going to happen? What's going to affect them in life? What happens when there is no water? So how do we want to conserve water? What are the things we need to do with water conservation? What are the values and including constitutional value in terms of what are my rights and what are my responsibilities? Sustainable SDG, you are all familiar with sustainable development goals, which are there in the curriculum. We all have been asked when we do lesson planning to mention SDG values as well. So we need to incorporate and integrate that as well. And of course, there are the citizenship goals and values. So integration, while we are doing all of this, we must realize, as I said, equality is the same. We are giving the same access, but not all children are able to express everything they learn in written form or by speaking, like we take orals and written exams. We are very comfortable with that. But we now need to integrate assessments in different forms as well. So it's not just about the curriculum and pedagogy having a flavor of integration. We also have to think about opportunities of integrating other ways in which children can demonstrate understanding of their concepts. So that level of integration can also happen. So if somebody is very good at writing a comparative study and summarizing in a written work something about, say, water conservation, or another child may want to talk about water conservation by making a little three-dimensional model and showing exactly what his concept about water conservation is. Or an artist may want to make a complete diagram on a huge chart and explain what water conservation is. Or say another little child wants to do a dance drama. He wants to show what is the movement of water and what happens when water becomes very less, and then what happens and how it gets affected. So when we provide opportunities for students to show their understanding differently, that is when they thrive because of the other ways in which they can express their learning and understanding. So here is a standard definition, and I'm only going to replace certain keywords and see how the whole concept is actually a part of a whole. Each of these are segments and components that construct the whole. I'll begin with art integration. So art integration, as you can read, is an approach to teaching in which students construct and demonstrate understanding through art forms, which, as I said, could be aesthetic art forms or performance art forms. They engage in a creative process. So they've understood something and then they put on their thinking caps and want to innovate and create something of their own learning and connect art into other subject areas so that the objective of learning is complete at both ends. The child has also learned and your learning objectives and outcomes as per your board mandate is also achieved. What if I just removed art integration and talked about the other three integration terms? So let's see how that changes. That's storytelling integration. An approach to teaching where students construct and demonstrate understanding through a narrated or animated story. They engage in socio-emotional and communication processes when the storytelling is happening. It's teaching them patience, listening, respect, and they connect the storyline with other subject areas. Of course, the last line remains common. It is meeting both ends of the objective. The students also understand and our learning objectives are met. Let's move on to the third element, sports integration. Here too, through sports and game and fitness facts, the students engage in an experiential process. Some child may be very fond of cricket and he wants to understand about health and fitness and everything through cricket. So what does he need if he wants to play cricket, or if I want to play football, or if my friend wants to play tennis or badminton? What does it involve? Is it an individual game? Then what kind of stamina do I need? If it's a group game, what is my participation in the group game? What are the rules? What is the kind of food I need to have? How long am I going to be on the field? All those aspects come into the picture. So it's not an isolated one game where I run a race and I get marked A because I got the first prize. It's a complete process of understanding something in a holistic manner. And last but not the least, technology integration, an approach to teaching in which students construct and demonstrate understanding by using the Web 2.0 tools and resources, and they engage in technology-enabled learning and assessment by connecting all the iGen digital and other tools which are required for achieving these outcomes. So why art integration? We all know, even as small children, and those of us who have had our own children, we must have observed that before our child was able to talk, they were singing. Before they were able to write, they were drawing across the walls with crayons and pencils, and we were having a hard time getting the marks off the walls. And even as they took the first strength to stand up, even before they were able to even walk, they would singularly stand in one place and they would dance. And then what happened? That art is a fundamental to human expression is something we robbed of them when we took them into formal education, put them into classrooms and said, sit at this place, at this desk, and this is the way you're going to learn. So suddenly the child who had that freedom to sing and draw and dance and coo and express in any way possible now had to become a passive recipient into some system in which all these natural processes of human expression suddenly came to a standstill. So NEP says you've got to bring that back. And that is why art integration is very, very important. It leads to visualization. It leads to interdisciplinary or transdisciplinary approaches. Art has always been an imitation of the real world, as it was, as it is, and what we fantasize or dream of. And you all know that whenever something new is created or innovated, everything is designed twice. Once it happens in your mind, what is happening? It is that creative visualization art form that first takes place in the human brain, which is then put onto something which is more tangible to be shared with others. And then it becomes something that is created in the world. So you can see all the other advantages of art integration, the respect for culture and heritage, shifting from rote into other forms, art-based inquiry by just observing what's around me, including the movement of a tree. How does it inspire an artist to draw? The naturalist painters, I mean, if you see Renoir's paintings and you see the way he has depicted the flowers and the trees and the movement in the water, or you see the strokes of Van Gogh's paintings, or you see the way if you go down into the Indian art forms, if you take something like, say, the Warli paintings, have you seen the way they have depicted the trees, the animals, everything? It's a depiction of everyday life. And of course, the moment art comes in, children's faces break into smile, and there is so much more joy in learning. So there are many elements to art education. You can take a look. We have put it down or across the circle. These include the aesthetic arts as well as the performing arts. And all these elements are things you can actually include as activities when you are planning the pedagogy or the teaching learning strategy that you want to take into the classroom. These are some of the other ideas. It may be very small for those of you who have logged in from your phone, but I'll just read out some of them. So in art, you can make a sculpture out of boxes. If you're doing best out of, you can make bird houses. You can make a reproduction of something. Maybe you're talking about birds and their habitat, and you have children work with sculpture and make a little sparrow house made out of clay. Get it baked in the sun, put it up and see whether the sparrows come in and nest again, because these are all species which are kind of moving away from the city because of microwave towers, pollution, and so many other things. Or you look at dance. You can have dance in the form of, the movement of rain. Many of you must have seen that fabulous YouTube performance of a group of children who depicted rain by starting with, rubbing their hands and then clicking with the first drops of rain to slapping their thighs to make the larger sounds of rain. And then they jump on the wooden stage to depict thunder. Now, those are such wonderful ways in which we can have art integration into understanding something like rain and thunder and storm and wind. Then there is music, and of course there is theater, which is such a powerful way of expressing any form of topic. Storytelling, again, stories create communities and they enable us to see through the eyes of other people and open us to the claims of others. And storytelling is the most powerful way to put ideas into the world. Today, when you look at these major marketing firms also, when you have a marketing executive coming and trying to sell you something, he won't just bring out a product and he will say, okay, these are the USPs. He's going to weave a story around it. He's going to tell you a story. When you hear Elon Musk, he actually talks about the story of his life and what it is that brought him there. Or you hear JRD Tata, it's a story that they talk about their life. We already know what the company is doing, but it's the story about the human being or the story about the invention that makes it so much more interesting, because through story, we are able to connect much better human to human. How storytelling affects the brain is these 4 quadrants. This is a little bit into the medical part of it. So there is neural coupling, which means the story actually activates parts in the brain that allow the listener to turn the story into their own ideas. The moment you hear a story, even in real life, what happens? You start making connections with what is it that is similar in your life. Where are the connections that you are making? Or you do mirroring. Listeners will not only experience the similar brain activity to each other, but they will also with the speaker. Or the dopamine release that happens. The brain releases dopamine into the system, and then it experiences an emotionally charged event, making it easier to remember with greater accuracy. And then the cortex activity, where the processing facts, 2 areas of the brain are activated, and a well-told story can engage many additional areas. So when a story is really narrated in a very wonderful, fun, and memorable way, it lasts for a lifetime. And I'm sure many of you will remember certain teachers in your school time, certain stories or certain things that they have narrated to you, you remember them even today. Why do you think that is? Because this effect in the brain has lasted lifelong for you, right? So storytelling also, these are all the aspects of storytelling that are really going to be very useful if we integrate it into the mainstream curriculum. I have listed them all. I'm not going to read them out. You can read them. I'll just talk about the topics. So communication, transdisciplinary, real world, literature and cultural appreciation, language skills, of course, story-based inquiry, which could relate into any other field, and of course, socio and emotional learning. Sports integration, again, very important, sports and health. So what are the aspects? Vocabulary related to sports, which normally gets left out because we don't really cover them in our regular classroom. But there is just so much of vocabulary which is related to sport, which is equally important. Of course, real world, get the children to actually play the game of their interest, of their liking, the one that they will enjoy learning through. Fitness education, what it is important to know, assess them through whether they are actually having the proper diet, they are able to run that mile, are they able to perform under stress. All these aspects are things that you do in the regular school. And of course, from the very early ages, you would also be working on the skill developments, whether it is motor skills, whether it is team spirit, or anything else, any of the other skills that are required when you're looking at sports. Because sports, again, makes you a rounded personality. It not only works on your health, it works on every aspect of your wellness and being, including your mental peace and stability. So I'm not sure whether you're aware of this, but for sports integration, last year around the same time, September, October, was it? I think September it was, that the National Association of Physical Education and Sports had held training programs which were related to integration of sports in curriculum. So if you have missed it, then you may want your school leaders to get in touch with the education boards and find out how you can get replays, and see how great speakers within the field have actually talked about how sports integration can happen. And these are the 4 areas that they talk about how we can integrate sports into the mainstream curriculum. So there are 4 strands. Of course, health and fitness and health and activity card is one part of it, but actually engaging children. So rather from receptive learning to engaged learners in playing a game and learning through engaging in the game, or doing some form of social empowerment through work education, is what is covered. Technology integration has got a huge impetus this time. And the NEP has talked about technology integration in part 3. There are 2 serial numbers, serial number 23, which covers these 2 topics, and then 24, which is about online and digital education. In 23, this is it talks about the formation of the National Education Technology Forum, which is also going to be doing the framework of how technology is to be included and integrated in schools. It will also cover how students learn and what to do to make students learn, and how teachers can be trained, and how educational administration can be done through technology. And these are the takeaways from section 23. Swayam, of course, is not related to diksha.gov.in. And you have on the dashboard, the home dashboard about Get App and Contribute. Through the home, you can access which is related directly to your curriculum. And if you wish to add on what are your Eureka moments or your planning or your contributions to technology integration, you can do it through the Contribute button. In section 24, it's about digital content creation. So this is where we teachers need to get trained and learn about how to integrate for digital content creation of virtual labs, gamification of learning, because gamification of learning is where the fun element of learning comes in, and content archival to build archives and repositories of what we are doing with children through the learning process. Of course, technology in teacher training, and you are all aware of Parak and NTA for designing holistic assessment frameworks. So technology is going to cover the complete life cycle of a student in school or through higher education, from the time of student onboarding in a school or in a college or whatever it is, right to leaving the institution, the alumni framework. Technology is going to play a very important part through the entire life cycle of the student, through the education platform. So these are some of the famous quotes. Teachers need to integrate technology seamlessly into the curriculum instead of viewing it as an add-on, an afterthought, or a separate event. At the heart of effective technology integration, technology offers opportunities to be more actively involved in the learning experience, because as we said, there are different kinds of learners. So these are all the aspects of technology integration. You can read them. It's going to be reading our children. And we want to make sure that when we are doing our planning, we are integrating all of this in the curriculum, right? And what is required, of course, we will have to shift the whole aspect of how children are accessing knowledge, information, how they are communicating with each other for discussion forums, discussion with teacher, discussion with their study group mates, or putting together their learning and showing evidence of their learning. Children will need digital platforms, whether it's in the form of laptops at home, or they have personal laptops or desktops or smartphones, some way in which technology can be harnessed for them to actually take power and charge of their own learning. Of course, in order to access the internet, you'll need an internet connection, and schools will have to have a framework where technology is embraced in all the ways possible to make learning very, very interesting, right? So this is a good time for me to take a short break. We are almost a little halfway through or a little more. So Sumit, I would be happy to answer any questions before I jump into some examples which are relevant as well as not relevant in the context of integrated learning. So
yeah.
Anyone?
So I'm looking at the comment box to get the questions, so we can.
So teachers, this is midway through. We have another 40 minutes left, or half an hour left. So very quickly, does anyone have a question right now, or do I complete it and then you can ask me your questions later? Anyone with any questions right now?
Not yet, ma'am, and we can expect a little lag.
Okay.
Getting the responses from the teachers, because we have at least 5 to 10 seconds lag on YouTube and Facebook.
Okay.
So right now there are no questions. So teachers, if you have any questions, you can write them in the comment box. We can address them later, I think.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Now, teachers, I want you to take a look at these examples which I have put together. And this is where the problem of understanding the definition of multidisciplinary, interdisciplinary, and transdisciplinary is going to come in. Let's look at, supposing we were taking one aspect of the 4 topics that we did today. Let's look at art integration. Can we see art integration in this slide? Yes, we can. The very famous story of the thirsty crow. We've done it time over again. So we see children forming 2-dimensional art forms, or somebody making a 3-dimensional little project, or this girl chooses to actually narrate the story by wearing a costume in it. Or we have Shakespeare being portrayed in a very fun way by children enacting the scene by themselves by wearing, the crowns of the royalty with flowers or leaves or varied costumes, or somebody doing a puppet show in the form of stick puppets through a sheet, and they're reading out the dialogues of Shakespeare through the tale. Or you can have your older children actually write programs for animated GIFs of certain scenes of a Shakespeare's. So can you see how the art integration has also embraced not only performing arts, it's done aesthetic arts, it's also integrated technology within it. So let's look at one of the primary school sharings of how this teacher, she was teaching the children cursive writing and how she integrated art and mathematics and writing along with the same thing. So let's take a look at this. Just a minute, I'll just go back to that slide.
Particular bulletin board shows an artwork that we did which combined math and writing. We had just finished a unit on cursive writing. We then used our knowledge of symmetry from math, and we did artwork where they did their cursive writing on one side, then they traced the reflection onto the other side. Then they colored it in. So you can see here Liam has written his name in cursive, L-I-A-M. Then he's folded it over and traced a symmetrical reflection. So I have a little reflection sheet that I asked them to fill out. I've asked them how it was made, the kinds of things that they used and the kinds of things that they did to make it. And the other question is, this reminds me of something because not only do they have to say what it reminds them of, but it has to say why it reminds them of. For example, this little girl said that it looked like a fishbone because it looked like the spikes after it had been eaten.
So that was just a small example about how this kindergarten teacher who's teaching cursive writing, or maybe grade 1, how she has integrated the concept of symmetry and cursive writing with art as well as reflection into the whole learning process, right? Now, mathematics, as we know, art in mathematics is a universal language of expression. There is no geography. So if we were to look at it, we know we all use different art forms and colors and shapes, and all of this we do. We do patterns, we do shapes, we do all kinds of things in the lower grades. Then when we move up, we start doing these graphs. So from pictograph, we move on to the XY scale graph paper. We do points of unity, or we even use art when we are doing fractal or the, fractal mathematics, or even the concept of the theory of chaos in mathematics. So these are all different art forms. Or why don't we look at something which is like the Pythagorean tree, in which we have these squares. We have the multiplication of the squares and the right angle isosceles triangle, which is moving. Or we do the Binet's equation through the intersecting lines in a circle, which is what we used to do when we were a little child, when we did spirograph. If you remember, there was that outer ring with teeth on the inside, and then there were these little circles with holes in the middle and teeth on the outside. And we would place it, put a ball pen refill through it, and make it go round and round. And we would have these beautifully spirally intersecting circles. So these are all parts of mathematics, but look at the beauty of art in mathematics, right? So this is art in mathematics. We have also seen art in science. You are all familiar with this very famous painting, Mona Lisa, which is by Leonardo da Vinci. But did you know way back in 1502, Leonardo da Vinci was actually a scientist, which you all know. He just happened to also express through art. He had done a fabulous design, which he had visualized in his mind, of this suspended bridge. And he had approached the Sultan of Turkey, at that time it was called something else, and he had said, in order to span this particular river, why don't you design this bridge? Of course, the Sultan of Turkey at that time said, it's impossible, it's impractical. Something like this cannot exist, it's just going to collapse. But friends, 500 years later, Leonardo da Vinci's design is now actually there in Norway, and it is called the Da Vinci Bruin Bridge. So something that was designed way back in 1502, which was way ahead of his times, actually found practical use today. So yes, art and science have been very deeply involved. When you see Rembrandt's painting of the anatomy lesson, it was all about biology. It was about the innards of a human being and how the class was interested in knowing what the insides of a human being looked like. Or if we look at Wright's A Philosopher's Giving a Lecture at Ore, it was all about the solar system and how the movement of the different planets on different orbits were going around. Now, these were all paintings. And if you remember earlier, I had said, Art is a depiction of life, of as it was, as it is, and how we fantasize it will be. Here is another example of art in science, where Marianne North's painting beautiful depiction of what she saw in flora and fauna outside is what we have as a repository or an archive of what were life forms in plants or what it was in the past. And then we can study about it, right? So sciences and art, they have a steamy relationship. And you know what STEAM is all about, right? Science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. So if they have a steamy relationship, why have we kept it out of the classrooms? There is a very, very natural link between art and the sciences as well, right? So here, if you see, these are fun ways in which we have integrated art into science. But this is another depiction of the animal and plant cell. And the one which is the last one on the bottom right is when they were studying how oil and water don't mix. So this is integrating art into the experiment of oil and water not mixing, right? But there is a problem in what I have shown you this far. Whatever I have shown you this far is a multidisciplinary approach. We took each and every subject and we said, this is the art element of this topic. This is the art element of this topic. This is an art element. This is not how we are going to do it. We are going to do it through an integrated approach where as I'm exploring whether water is mixing with oil or not, I'm just adding an art element into it and not making it say, this is art through science of water not mixing with oil. So we have to be a little careful that we dissolve the boundaries of these subjects and bring it together into a cohesive learning platform in such a way that the children kind of just move in and out of the subject areas as they discuss, as they learn, as they research, as they put their learning together without realizing they're doing it. And that is what the integrated approach would be. Right. So what is the step we need to take? We have to move from multidisciplinary into interdisciplinary, into transdisciplinary, which is what integration is. And I'm sure you're wondering, what is the difference? So let's take a quick look at what the difference between all these three terms are. This is in an additive manner. It involves little interaction across the various disciplines. You're handling each subject separately. In interdisciplinary, we combine two or more disciplines to a new level. So I may take SS and art and put it together and say, for this particular topic, this is the experience I'm going to give. Whereas transdisciplinary is, there is a complete fusion. It is a new approach of how learning can happen or how the strategies of planning can be done. The outcome is completely different. Yes, very important. Not the same, but related, right? So here are the examples of actual integration. And for this, I'm going to take you back. Remember this slide where I had said these are the 4 aspects. And we had also said NEP wants us to add these 5 aspects, which are also going to be integrated into the curriculum and into the planning as we do pedagogy planning, right? Let's take an example. This is from your CBSE manual. And as you know, the CBSE, the guidelines of how you want to map your chapters to your learning objectives and learning outcomes. I have taken the section 3 of it, which is where the mapping of the chapters to the LOs and, the learning objectives and learning outcomes are. So I've just taken one example of animals, right? So this is an English topic. Let's suppose we take the concept of animals and we introduce it through this story. And the story about bringing up Carrie is basically about a small boy with a very young elephant, and they grow up together, their relationship with each other, their respect for each other, how Carrie needs to be trained, what is the environment in which they have grown, and their care and affection for each other, right? So when we are looking at this, what we talked about, these 9 elements that we have to integrate, let's see whether this theme covers all the 9 elements. Is storytelling happening? Yes. We are bringing, in with this particular story. Are the subject facts going to be explored? Yes. The foundational knowledge, which is related to the math, science, SS, and language arts of this particular concept of animals, is going to be explored. The children can engage in art of either in performing art or physical art, the aesthetic art. We can research on whether animals were used in sports and games. And if they were used, were there individual games? Were there team games? What were the games like? How were they played? What was the requirement for the area that had to be played? Technology, the children will research on all these facts, or they may make digital presentations through slides or a flash movie or making a blog, or maybe they record a small podcast of what they have found out about, animals that on the animal theme. Moving ahead, knowledge of India. So where are animals found in India? Which are the states in which they are found? Do some map work on it, color them. Bring in the math element. What are the numbers that are left of the Asian, elephants in India? What about other animals that live with elements and elephants in the same habitat? Do they eat those same kind of leaves or the plants that are existing over there? Real world experience. Let's take them to the zoo, or let's take them to the place where they could probably have an elephant ride. That will be a real world experience, and bring them to the proximity where they can study the elephant very closely. Values. How do we treat our animals? How do we look after pets? Can we bring every single animal that's there in the forest in as a pet or a domestic animal? What are the laws related that will come under your values and citizenship? Sustainability. What are we doing to the world around? Is it going to allow animals to thrive or not? Globalization. What are other breeds and animals that are existing in the world? So look at the theme of animals and see how we have covered all the 9 elements that NEP talks about. Second example, games. Games are fun. They are teachers for a lifetime. They teach us so many things. They teach us discipline. They teach us about rules. They teach us about teamwork. They teach us about the spirit of losing and winning. They teach us about accountability, responsibility, and playing, by the book. So when we're talking about integration, these are all the aspects we can cover when we are talking about games. Why do we play games? Is there an entertainment aspect? Is there something that makes us feel good? Does it give us some form of exercise, keep us healthy, the health and wellness part of it? What are the rules, values, and attitudes related to games? What are the types of games? Are there individual games? Are there team games? Are there games in water? Are there games on land? What are the different types of games? Where are they played? Again, map work, which is played where? Which are the national games of different countries? Again, tremendous opening to explore that. And then coming down to, if the child wants to explore games, what is your game of interest? So here we are coming into the equity part of it rather than the equality part of it. Would you like to explore games through your favorite game? What is the structure and format of your game? So if you want to play your game, what is the area you need? So what are the measurement? What is the size? What are the equipments and tools and accessories you need? What are they made of? Are they sustainable devices? Do we need to move away from using natural products, like, say, for example, the wood we use for a cricket bat, or we use leather for a football? Should we be moving away from using hide and leather for a football and maybe use something else? So here is an example. We can introduce the story either for games, either through the biography of Pelé, who is, of course, very famous footballer, or we have the story in the English Collins book, the story of cricket, or in the Hindi book, we have a story, Bhalu ne khela football. It could be through any form of introduction. Or you may want to use the hook of taking the children into the play field and just having them play a game, just a friendly match, and see what happens, and start off with a game with no rules so that they understand why there is a need for rules. Then when they are pitted against each other, what are the values and attitudes and everything else that we talked about? So if you look at football, there are just so many things. There's mathematics, physics, science in football. When we look at the field, there's so much of stuff we can do with circles, semicircles, triangles, or, if I just draw a diagonal across the 2 corners, I'll get 2 triangles, and there'll be so many other intersections that happen through the circle. So do I get semicircles on both sides? Is there symmetry in the field? How do I convert from yards into meters or meters into feet? There's so much of math involved. When I look at the ball, I can ask the question, why does a ball need to be a sphere? Why can it not be a cube? Or why can it not be prism shaped? What is it about the game in football that we need it to be round and spherical? Because it has to roll. If that be the case, then what is the difference between Indian football and American football? The Indian football is kicked. What do people do with American football? Do they also kick it? Why is the shape of the American football different from the Indian football? What is it made of? Again, so these are openings, then the angles, angle of the shot, the force of the shot, what is the distance it will travel? So physics comes into it. There are so many elements, what the players are wearing. What about the data in football? The number of goals scored, who are the countries who feature on the chart, who are the top runners in football? And then you bring in technology and get children to work in Excel and plot graphs for you, all kinds of graphs, whether they are these kind of histograms or line graphs. Then they're looking at all kinds of mapping of these graphs. So there is just so much. And then you bring in biology. What is the diet of a football player? Why does he need to have all this? Item number one, what is it going to give him more? What is the food value in potatoes, pasta, rice, and that is going to bring in the carbs? So their understanding of carbohydrates, their understanding of which items are going to give them vitamins and minerals, which are the ones that are going to give them protein. So there is a lot which happens with just one theme. And then you can end it off with actually a friendly mat, or you can make them do a little creation of a dummy game or three-dimensional game. You can also make them make their own games. You can pretend that they have made their own game with a new idea. They can design the logo for the football or their t-shirts. So there is art involved. There are just so many elements that you can integrate into this theme. So when we look at this again, take a look. All the 9 aspects are covered. If you see, we have covered storytelling, the art, the sports, the technology part, knowledge of India, real world experience, values, sustainability, and globalization. Everything which is related to NEP's 9 elements are integrated into this one theme. The last one over here, the food we eat. Again, coming back to the section 3 of your mapping of the chapters into the learning objectives. This is from grade 8, crop production and management. And look at the learning objectives. It opens up the window for so many things you can do with food. What is the history of what human beings ate? What is the evolution of our food habits that have happened? Today, what are the types of food habits that people have? Non-vegetarian, vegetarian, or vegan? What is the whole concept of vegan and why the importance for vegan? Which food grows in what kind of soil type, climate, and water? Have them actually do a tactile experience of handling the different types of soil. So when you're doing types of soil in geography or science, you can integrate it to the food we eat and talk about which is the type of soil which actually is required for which kind of grain or crop that has to be grown. So when food is coming in from grains and crops, then where, when, and how is it grown? And if food is coming in from animals, then which are the animals for which we need to have husbandries and we need to have them protected if the consumption of animal meat and fish and eggs and everything is going to happen? How does it affect our nutrition? How has our body adapted to the change in the food and diet that we now have? What happened to the appendix when we were the human beings of the yesteryears? What happened to the size of our teeth? Why has the canines shrunk? Why have they become rounded? Why have our teeth, the front portion of our teeth, become more like bovine creatures? Then you have the fantastic element of the festivals that are related to harvesting of crops and grains. So the dance, the music, the attire, the food items that are presented during the festivals. Then you can take them on a journey of what is the journey of food from farm to plate. So what happens? You can allow each child to become a story writer. I am a potato. I was grown in so-and-so's farm. So give a character to who the farmer was. What is the relationship between the potato and the farmer? Did he grow above the soil or below the soil? What kind of care did the farmer give him? How did he reach from the soil into a van, into a sack, into a marketplace, from the marketplace into your cartman, into your mom's shopping bag, from your mom's shopping bag into the kitchen, and then into the wonderful aloo chaat that the child is enjoying? So you can have a cooking experience and trace the journey from farm to plate. And through the journey of farm to plate, you can also explore mathematics, economics, the pricing of food grains, how the price escalates between the farmer and the final retail buyer. Why does that happen? And so many other concepts which can be interrelated without the child really realizing this is a math component, this is the science component, or this is the social component. Of course, SDG values and other constitutional values and interrelationships, all that have to be kept in mind. And the real life experience of having a cooking experience or growing a garden patch in the school or at home. Art through vegetables. You can have artworks done by rubbing spinach, or you can have, beetroot, or you can have any of these plants that give off color. You can use the feathers of the birds, when they shed feathers, you can use that in the art forms. Or you can even do music with vegetables. For example, in our, when I was with Sant Kabir, we had a whole performance by children who made music by carving a flute out of the carrot. So they learned about the food item. They also made it into a musical instrument, and they made music through that. So there's just so much you can do. But how do you start? It's difficult sometimes to wonder, where do I start? So a very simple thing to start would be a very quick video again. So you're wondering, so many elements of learning, how do I put them together? And then you come to the drawing board.
She's heard about the importance of integration and couldn't imagine how she could ever teach her children when they get older, much less tutor a class of other teenaged homeschoolers, because integration really comes to the fore in challenges A and up. She asked, how do you make connections between all of the subjects? How do you integrate them? I don't know enough about all of the different subjects to do that. I replied, well, why do we believe the subjects are all integrated? What integrates them? God does? He is the author of all of them, and therefore is the point of integration, the point they have in common, right? Right, I answered. You don't integrate the subjects, God integrates the subjects. Think of it like cooking a meal. You mix all of the subjects into the students throughout the day, and the integration just bubbles up to the top. All you have to do is let it. Okay, that sounds great, but how do you let it? Right, that's where it seems to get harder, but there are some really great tools to help you do that. One of my favorites is the topic wheel. First, you draw a circle in the middle of your whiteboard. Then you draw 5 or 6 additional circles around it. You can even draw lines to show the students they are all connected. Then, you write the topic being discussed in the inner circle. Let's say you were in Challenge 1, discussing water and physical science. The outer circles you label with each of the other subjects the students discuss during the community day. Latin, math, government economics, literature, geography. Then, you just have them discuss water and what they know about it from physical science. Its chemical formula, and its 3 forms, ice, water, steam, etc. Then, you move to each of the other circles and have them fill in things about water in each of those subjects. For example, in the geography circle, they might list the oceans and identify how many of them there are. In economics circle, they might discuss the cost of water bottled or piped into their homes. In Latin, they might give the Latin translation of water and other derivations of it. In math, they discuss the calculations of volumes of water. In literature, they might discuss the themes or motifs of water, like the violence of frozen water in The Call of the Wild, or the waters Billy Budd sails on in Melville's Billy Budd Sailor. And in the scripture circle, they might discuss the flood waters, Old Testament washings, and baptismal waters. But I don't know all that stuff, she interrupted. That's okay. You don't need to. They are the ones making the connection. The students will agree and disagree and discuss whether somebody like Billy Budd and his travails on the water should be included in the list or not. And through their observations, you will learn how to make those observations. But then she said, so I'm going to use the topic wheel as a tool that will encourage them to have discussions and make observations that reveal this integration, the integration that God wrote into the subjects when He created them. Yes, they make the connections, and you, using the topic wheel as a tool, help those integration connections to bubble up to the top and spill out of them. The integration just happens. It just happens.
Okay. So the way ahead for you is really getting to know what NEP wants you to do through integration in your curriculum through the various pedagogical processes. You will then learn to see how the different aspects of the teacher's resource has been laid out for you. The important ones are the section 1, which is a suggested pedagogy. The section 2 is a list of all the learning outcomes that the child is expected to achieve at the end of each class stage. And section 3 is mapping the, the contents in the book, in your NCERT textbooks, and several learning objectives and outcomes. How do you map them together in order to make the learning become a very meaningful learning? What is important to understand over here is you will now need to sit not as departments, as in English department, math department, science department, or SS department. You will now need to sit as cohesive departments of transdisciplinary groups, where you take up a theme, you take up a topic, and you see what are the elements in which the others can also contribute through this particular topic.
Couple brief things. We have the agenda over there. Some things we wanted to bring up. We only got half an hour, so we'll do our best to use our time efficiently.
When teachers talk to each other, teachers learn from each other. There's so many great ideas that our teachers come up with that engage kids, get kids to think outside of the box, that I'm just amazed at what we can accomplish when we work together.
This is a sample of the Hood River Middle School.
Individuals create great ideas, but really to move schools forward, I believe that everyone needs to be together and dialoguing with each other and creating a conversation about how to best serve students.
I feel really fortunate that at our school we have grade level prep, which means that every day all the 6th grade teachers are able to discuss various topics, whether that be student concerns we have or how to better integrate curriculum. Here is what remains of the weather balloon. We're really excited. This is actually pretty much everything minus the balloon itself. Last year, an engineering teacher and myself thought it'd be really great to have a sort of science engineering crossover project where we launched a high altitude weather balloon way up into the stratosphere with the intention of getting some unique data to help reinforce 6th grade topics of watershed studies and whatnot. 3, 2, 1. And here is the tree it landed on, somewhere in the Klickitat.
Yeah.
It went somewhere in between. Right? And that's what we're going to try to show to everyone using this data that everyone's pawing through right now. I definitely had a pretty clear idea in mind of what I wanted to do upon retrieving our weather balloon, and it was great to bring the topic to the rest of the team to find out how we could connect it to language arts and other content areas. Yesterday, we were able to make a crossover connection to math. I was having students actually looking through the data, and I was trying to rack my brain about how we might make more of a robust language arts connection. That's not my strength. I was wondering if you guys had any ideas.
Also do a really cool imagination piece with the travel of that too.
Story of the pictures, tracing.
But I think it's a great way to bring in the scientific writing too. I mean, you could do both. You could take both.
You could do the same type of writing for both of them. One would be scientific writing and one would be creative writing, and basically we're inspired by one single experience, and how could you look at it from different perspectives.
That'd be cool.
You have to provide the structure for collaboration. That's essential. You can't have collaboration if teachers don't have time to collaborate. And so by tweaking a master schedule, you can provide opportunities for collaboration. That collaboration leads to great things.
Because of that common prep time, it allows every team to plan field trips that allow them to figure out how do we relate the curriculum within the different subject areas. So you remember we went on the field trip. That was gathering data for helping the kids understand science based on where we live and our unique geology in the gorge.
When the science teachers decided to do this geology unit on land formations, we saw the opportunity as language arts teachers to bring the idea of the legends that explained these into reading and language arts so they could write a legend and then perform it. And they could choose to work alone or in partners or in a group, and they've done skits and storybooks and comic strips and puppet shows and iMovies. So yeah, they're
Are those recorded somewhere that we could watch, or were they?
We took a trip and it was meant to be for science, and then in this class we're writing legends about Beacon Rock and Watchella Falls and how Hood River Gorge came to be.
The effect for the kids is they hear common messages. rather than it being discrete classrooms and subjects and teachers and classes. They see it all relating together.
It is incredibly important to allow teachers to collaborate and work together, not only to enrich the learning of all their students, but ourselves as professionals.
Okay, I'm going to run that through. In conclusion, we must remember that today's classrooms must prepare students for a future in which collaboration and interdisciplinary work are the norm. And the integration of 21st century skills and 21st century interdisciplinary themes into core subjects is what is going to be a guiding mantra in schools today. We must remember that these are the aspects that are going to be covered. And when we look at all the, the mandates that they have put, that children must have global awareness, financial, economic, business, and entrepreneurial literacy, civic literacy, health literacy, and all the other 21st century skills, we know NEP wants us to do just that. This was our opening slide, and this is the one that we are going to end with, right? The question is, are we ready? So we need to ask ourselves, how thorough are we in our understanding of what is integrated curriculum, what is integrated pedagogy, how do I plan a transdisciplinary process so that my children have a complete holistic learning experience without removing each of those subject elements from their part in understanding the whole, right? So thank you, everyone. Don't rush the process. The seeds that you plant today are going to need time to grow, but they will happen. So thank you and good luck.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for such an enlightening session. And I'm pretty sure that the teachers who have attended today's session are really thrilled by the knowledge that you have shared with them. We are facing a little lag, like we discussed right in the beginning. So the session is still, the video is still on YouTube, so it's still going on.
No
right?
issues.
So the teachers, if you have any questions, please feel free to write them in the comment box. Yes, we have one question from one of the teachers as to how does the integration of all these things help the students. So this is something that you have already mentioned throughout the session, and there is one more question that one of the teachers asked was like, in what if the child of grade LKG does not understand the concepts with these or by these methods? So what to do in that case?
So here is something beautiful. Children will understand something if it is given to them in the manner, you really must read the book, How Children Learn, because not every child learns in the same way. Every child may require a different input, a different opportunity, and a different experience is what I have said, right? Eventually, it's not possible that a child is not going to achieve what a particular minimum learning objective is. If you know that there are what we call the minimum learning levels, right? So those base levels are what is our parameter that we must ensure that for that particular age, for that age group of child with the kind of mental development that has happened, even if it is for pre-primary, this is the minimum that a child should be able to do. So let me explain with a real example. So as the principal of the pre-primary section, which was called Tenderfeet Academy in Baroda, we had almost 630 to 700 children in pre-primary with over 150, 170 children per year, nursery, junior KG, senior KG. And believe you me, we used to do de bono routines with children of nursery, junior, and senior. We used to do lateral thinking activities. We used to leave the platform open. Say, for example, we asked the children of senior KG, what are the different ways in which you can use an umbrella? So, of course, the very standard questions will come. We first teach them, what does an umbrella look like? How does the umbrella open? What is the function of the umbrella? What is it made of? Without really going, into the details that this is the science part of it, or this is the, the whatever the other aspects of it are. And then we extended their thinking to, all right, so an umbrella helps you to keep the sun away. It helps you to keep the rain away. What are the other ways in which you can use the umbrella? And you won't believe it. There were ideas given by children. If we think children don't understand, then we need to take 2 steps back and actually leave the floor to them. So there were ideas. I can use the umbrella to pluck mangoes from a tree. I can use the umbrella to beat my brother when he's troubling me, which was not so very nice. I can use the umbrella to pull the ball that has rolled under the bed. I can use the umbrella to remove something which is hanging really very high. I can use the umbrella for just about anything. So you have to allow the children to actually have an open discussion, and you have to do constructive response documentation. So step back from doing active teaching yourself, but get into a part where you are allowing children to talk to each other, and it is the discussion among the children which will help them to learn, not so much what you will teach them. It is through their discussion, through their experience, that they are going to form the learning. And that will happen through various forms. It will happen through them trying to make an umbrella with twigs and maybe a piece of paper or a piece of cloth, by drawing, by using it in many other ways.
Absolutely right. That stepping back and then learning new things is an important thing. So thank you so much, ma'am. I'm looking at the comment box. All we are getting is the appreciation by the teachers. So with this, I would like to conclude the session. And I think yeah, it's already 4:30. So thank you so much, ma'am, for such a wonderful session. I'm pretty sure that the knowledge that you have imparted today will help the teachers learn new concepts and improve their teaching learning process, and they will be able to integrate art, sports, and the other aspects that you have talked about today in the session in their regular classroom teaching. So thank you so much, ma'am, for an amazing session. And thank you so much, everyone. We have close to 700 participants attending this session.
Wow.
So thank you so much.
Okay.
It wouldn't have been possible without you. So
thank you very much, Collins Learning, for this platform. And I'm very happy that so many teachers are feeling the need and the curiosity and the energy to wanting to jump into integrated curriculum and integrated pedagogy. And teachers, you're doing a fabulous job. So good luck for this venture as well. And I'm sure it's going to work out very well.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for such nice words. So with this, we would like to conclude the session. Have a very, very good evening, everyone, and have a wonderful year ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.